Hello. It's always difficult to be far from home, but especially at this time of year. It is September 1992, and I'm 18 years old, and I'm crammed into the back of a black London taxi. It's my dad's taxi, and I'm sitting in the back with all my stuff, including my mountain bike, and my mum is sat next to me, and she's squeezed next to me so tightly, and she's holding onto my hand so much that I can see the whites of her knuckles. We're riding through London in my hometown of Blackheath, and it's a beautiful suburb with gorgeous Edwardian houses. And as we're driving through this part of London, it's so weird because it's so quiet. And usually in the back of my dad's taxi, it's so loud because my dad is talking all the time, sharing all these beautiful stories, or he'll be playing his music, which is always really loud. You might hear Bruce going, "Born in the USA," or you might hear Little Richard belting out, "A wop babaloo bop, a wop bam boom." But today, all you can hear is the gentle hum of the diesel engine. Because today I'm leaving and I'm going to Liverpool to university. I don't know anything about Liverpool. All I know is that it's the birthplace of the Beatles, passionate soccer fans, and the funniest accent you've ever heard in all your life. Now, in the middle of Blackheath, where I'm from, there's this tiny little tea hut. It's been there for centuries. It used to be there for weary travellers as they went with their horses and carts down to the English seaside. But now it's just there for worn-out truckers who want a bacon sandwich and a strong cup of tea. So when my dad screeches his taxi to a halt right beside this tiny little tea hut and he switches off the engine, I'm like, "Mum, what's Dad doing?" And she's like, "Nick, your dad's crying." And he opens up the little partition that separates the driver from the passenger, and he says, "You're leaving home today, and I know you're not coming back." So they drop me off at the train station, and I go all the way to Liverpool with all my stuff, and I arrive in this new house with these girls I'm going to be living with for the next year, and I'm sat with them, and I'm racking my brains for something to say to these strangers, anything. And one of them offers me a cigarette, and I take it, and I don't even smoke, and I'm just sat there. And then one of them says to me, "Oh, there's a letter here for you." And there is. And it's from my dad. And in that letter, my dad says to me, "I'm so proud of you for everything that you've done. And gather ye rosebuds while ye may," which is my dad's little way of saying, "Go on, you go and have a great time in your life. You take every opportunity." And suddenly, the bucket load of frogs that has been bouncing around in my stomach since this morning is gone. My dad writes me letters every week after that at university, sometimes 2, sometimes 3. All of them are penned from the front seat of his London taxi. Often there's like a big splodge of jam, a tea stain. There's little bits of advice, things that my family are doing, and all these colourful stories about his escapades as a London taxi driver. Like the one time he went to pick up a couple from their house, and as he got there, he realised that the woman was in rip-snorting labour, and the husband was like, "Hospital and hurry up!" And they get into the taxi, and they arrive in the worst traffic jam in London has seen in over a decade. And by the time that they get to the hospital, my dad is sweating, the man is sweating, the woman is screaming her head off, and they cart her off. And as my dad goes home, he stops off at the pub for a swift half to steady his nerves. All the time, he had to pick up a lunch from Harrods to deliver to this business luncheon to these fat cat businessmen in the city. And it was this gorgeous lunch of appetizers and canapes, and it was all laid out on the back seat of his cab. And the smell of the aroma of these delicious canapes wafted through to the front of the cab. And so my dad decided to try a few of those canapes on the way to the delivery. And as he handed it to the man who was waiting for it at the other end, he said, "I'd try the prawn ones, mate. They're especially good." So after I leave university, I go travelling around Australia for 3 years. I live in a van. This is still the 90s. There's no internet. International telephone calls cost a fortune. And I'm itinerant. No one knows where I'm going to be, but somehow my dad finds out a rough idea of where I will go. And so he sends his letters to post offices along the way. My friends are always like, why are we going to this small town? It is in the middle of nowhere. I'm like, my dad has written a letter. And so we race there, often right before the post office will close, and I'll get there and a postmaster will shove these letters rudely at me. But I don't care, because suddenly, when I see his familiar handwriting, I'm holding home. 14 years later, I'm living in Vancouver. I'm married. I've got 2 small children. I'm 8 months pregnant. It's summer. I've gained 70 pounds. I am enormous, I am hot, I cannot move. But today my mum is calling me to let me know when she and my dad are going to come to visit and meet their new grandchild. Just from the way that she says hello, I know that everything's not all right. Nick, your dad's got cancer. We can't come to Canada. And as I put down the phone to my mum, and I'm looking at my small children and they're running around, and I'm thinking, what can I do? I'm so big. No one's going to let me on a plane. How can I let my family know that I love them, that I'm there for them? And then I remember, I can write letters too. Thank you. I would just like to add a postscript to that story. That was 7 years ago. My dad's still driving a taxi, and he's still writing me letters. Thank you.